Hello and welcome back to Elmer Time. Let's have a little heart-to-heart about the channel. And afterwards, we'll talk a little bit about bands and modes for those entry-level operators. Coming up next. This is Jeffrey, AD7LN. Welcome back to the radio room. Okay, well, first off, welcome back to Elmer Time. Elmer Time number 12. And I hope everybody has had a decent summer north of the equator and stayed out of the heat. I know there's been some really tough heat spells and floods in certain areas. First of all, I would like to thank those other YouTube creators that have found my email link on my YouTube page and helped with constructive criticism about the editing and production of this video, or the videos that I make. I just want to re-clarify, thank you, that I'm not trying to do this in any professional manner. This is to relay information to those radio operators that need it. I'm not going to be making any money on this show. I don't plan on it. Plus, radio operators use both their eyes and their ears, so if you guys can hear me, that's probably more than 50% of what needs to be transferred here. So that works. So the video quality, you know, as long as you can see me and see the board, that's all I'm really concerned about. Even if you can only see half my face, it doesn't matter. It's not about my face. It's about what I'm trying to give the information. That's what it's about. Trying to give information so that people can enjoy their radio hobby, whichever radio hobby that is. This is never going to be a daily YouTube channel to try to make money. I'm certainly not going to be making a lot of videos weekly or daily. I've got a life. Anyway, for those that have found my YouTube channel and the email link that's on the About page, go ahead and use it. That's what it's there for. However, for those religious people that find the need to keep emailing me, telling me that I need to spread the word of God in their fashion, that's not needed, really. That's why I'm not here for that. If I was, it'd be a different channel. It wouldn't be Elmer Time, it would be some other time. So, go with that. I'm here to get people interested in all the different kinds of radio and their hobbies. And there's so many of them, so, you got to kind of bounce around a little bit on the different kinds of radio information. And again, I'm not going to be the person that does the radio reviews for the latest, the greatest, and the best of this kind of radio product and that kind of radio product. There's a lot of other YouTube creators that do that already. And if you go to my channels page on my YouTube page, you will see that I have probably subscribed to as many radio-related websites as I can get that I can get to, that I can see. So that if you go to my channels page, you can go to that page, or all the different pages that are on that channels page, and there's got to be at least 1,000 or better. And you can gain information about the different types of radio hobby that you want to get into. Or if you just want to see reviews about certain equipment, there's definitely people out there doing that. I'm not going to be doing that. As far as the VLF radio, those shorts that I did here a few days ago, picked a bad time. There really wasn't a lot of wideband VLF earth noise going on at that time, so I apologize for that. I'll keep it in the back burner, and if I see that there's going to be some meteor showers or aurora-based noise or some really heavy thunderstorm lightning storms in the area or within a couple thousand miles, then I'll make a couple more videos just so you guys can hear that. I think that does it for right now. If you guys got any questions about something in radio, you know, I don't know everything about radio. Yes, I've got, you know, I got my GROL license from the FCC with radar endorsement. I've got the amateur extra class license. That doesn't mean I've got the encyclopedia of radio in my head, so that's why I always say, for those that are really getting into any technical aspect of radio hobbies, or if you get into amateur radio, first thing you should do is get your first two books: the ARRL Handbook for Radio Communications and the ARRL Antenna Book. That way, when you're going into whatever avenue of radio it is, you can use those two books as kind of an encyclopedia of sorts for whatever you're trying to dig up for information. So with that, let's leave it from there, and then we'll go into our bands and modes for those folks that are just getting into radio. Because I've noticed that some people get the bands and the modes confused. And I know it's a topic that gets covered by many other operators and YouTube channel creators. However, I'm still seeing a lot of upset between the two. So I myself will be covering this as well. Just from the base up to 30 megahertz, long wave into the end of shortwave. So let's get into it. All right, so bands versus modes. Starting off, in the United States, most people, I don't know for how many years, have grown accustomed to any type of broadcast radio that they're presented with. Here in the US, most likely in other countries too, maybe Canada, South America, maybe, I don't know. Radios are considered AM, FM radios, or just AM radios, or, you know, whatever, AM and FM. However, it's actually, I don't know why it's called that, it's actually a medium wave VHF radio. FM and AM are the modes of receive, not the bands. FM is the mode for receive on VHF, which is 88 to 108 megahertz. AM is the mode of receive for the broadcast band on medium wave, which is around 530 to 1700 kilohertz. And if you were to look at it as far as a chart, here's a representation of a scale of radio frequencies, and it does go lower than this, and it does go higher than this. But this covers the area that we're going to be talking about tonight, or today. Here's VLF, LF, MF, HF, VHF, and UHF. VLF is very low frequency. LF is low frequency. MF is medium frequency. HF is high frequency. VHF is very high frequency. And UHF is ultra high frequency. And below each labeled are the designated frequencies for each band. VLF 9 kilohertz to 30 kilohertz, LF 30 kilohertz to 300 kilohertz, and so on. So when we go back to the AM/FM radio here, AM is considered medium frequency or medium wave. You could also call it medium wave. And LF, you could also call it long wave. And that was my Chihuahua, thinking there's somebody at the door at this time of night, so don't mind her. And then, of course, HF would be considered shortwave. So, again, this radio, the AM portion, or medium wave portion, that receives in AM, 530 kilohertz to 1700. That falls under the medium wave area. It doesn't take up the whole area, just part of it, which is 530 to 1700 kilohertz. It's within this band range area. The FM on the radio, which is actually in the VHF portion, FM is the mode that it receives in, is 88 to 108, which is up here. If I can draw correctly. And it is in megahertz because it's higher in frequency. That looks horrible. There we go, that looks a little better. 88 to 108 megahertz. And it is within this portion of the VHF range. VHF is actually from 30 megahertz up to 300. And this is just a small portion that this radio receives in for the FM broadcast band. So, just to get it straight here, this is a medium wave VHF receiver. Everybody just calls it an AM/FM radio. Now, as far as modes, what is a mode? Well, if you want to define a mode, it is the different methods of modulating a radio signal. Whether you're introducing a voice, music, data into the transmitted radio signal. That would be the type of radio mode where it's AM, which is amplitude modulation, FM, which is frequency modulation, SSB, that's single sideband. There's two versions, upper sideband and lower sideband, at least for what we're concerned with right now, upper and lower. You've got, of course, CW, which is code wave. There's many digital forms and voice digital. We're not going to get through all that. I'm just giving you the basics for those that are starters into ham, starters that are into shortwave receiving, medium wave, and FM DXing. So there's many modes, but your basic modes that are used the most just for right now, let's see, AM, FM, CW, lower sideband, upper sideband. We're going to talk a little bit about the HF band. And most shortwave operators and ham operators will still pretty much consider that the HF band actually drops further than 3 megahertz, just because that there's amateur bands below 3 megahertz. But in reality, the 160 meter band is in the medium wave frequency portion of that chart. If one were to be tuning around for the first time on a shortwave radio or a ham radio that is designed for HF communications, 3 to 30, you will find that there are different modes that are being transmitted by certain individuals, whether it's a international broadcast station, whether it's an amateur radio operator, whether it's utility, whether it's marine, maritime. As far as aviation used to transmit throughout the HF band, but I'm hearing that they have cut that out now, and they're going to a different mode, which must be satellite for all I know. It used to be that aircraft that would travel over large bodies of water would have to use sideband HF to communicate with land-based stations. But that may not be anymore. But however, utility stations and marine, throughout the HF band, let's just say from 1 to 30 megahertz, within that range somewhere, utility stations and marine stations normally use upper sideband only. Aircraft stations used to use upper sideband as well. Don't know if that's even going on anymore. International broadcasts from around the world, different radio stations that transmit their news and music from their country, usually that's on AM. And it'll be in certain portions within the HF band, between 3 to 30. As far as amateur radio, if you were to see this chart here between 1 megahertz and 30 megahertz, there are different bands for the amateur radio operators, and they're called different meters, different bands. Like, for instance, here in this area is 10 meters, this area 12, 15 meters, 17 meters, 20, 30, 40, 60, 80, and 160. The meters increase in number as the lower you go in frequency. And mainly for voice, for those that are tuning around to listen to amateur radio operators, most voice from 14 megahertz going up in the number and frequency will be on upper sideband. Most of the bands or frequencies that amateur radio operators use below 20 megahertz will be in lower sideband. There are exceptions to the rule, of course, but mainly this is it. However, in the 60 meter band, which is a 5-channel channelized area around 5.3 to 5.4, they use upper sideband. So you got this little spot here where they use upper sideband, but everything from 20 down, or below 20, is lower sideband. Everything from 20 up is upper sideband. And that means all the way up into VHF and UHF will be upper sideband. FM in the HF band, it's being used up here in the 29 megahertz area of the 10 meter portion of the amateur band there. The 30 meter band does not have voice on it. It's RTTY and some sort of digital. But the other bands will have voice and CW, meaning sideband and CW. And they can also have AM. It's in slow scan TV and digital, you know, all sorts of stuff. That's why it's very good to get a printout from the ARRL website, the U.S. Amateur Radio Bands, the band plan here. Gives you a full readout of each individual band from actually below 160 meters. There's a 2,200 meter and a 630 meter, and then the 160, the 80, 60, 40, and so on. And it also shows the band plan above 30 megahertz, which is 6 meters, 2 meters, 1.25 meter, and so on. Shows you what modes can be used, or what modes are being used, and what modes certain amateur radio operators can use, depending on the class of license that they have. Download this from the ARRL website. Great piece of information to have, no matter if you're a ham or a shortwave radio operator. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good start for those that are getting into scanning around on the frequencies on shortwave, whether you're a ham or an SWL person, shortwave listener. It's good to know what bands are and what modes to be using when you're in certain portions of the band to try to catch that radio transmission and to decipher what is being said or what kind of music or data is being played upon that transmission. So, of course, CW within the amateur radio bands, all the way across here, you'll notice that the CW portions are usually at the very beginning of each band, the very bottom of each band. If you look here on the amateur radio band plan, digital or CW is usually at the very beginning of each band. Not all the time, but usually. So, So if you guys got any questions, please let me know. If you want to go deeper into the digital part of the spectrum as far as different kinds of digital voice, which there's a tremendous amount on VHF and higher, we can do a whole show just on that alone. But for those that are just starting out on the radio, this may help you guys out some. I hope it helps, and I appreciate you guys coming in to watch the Elmer Time number 12. And keep in mind, an Elmer helps you along. He doesn't give you every single little thing. You got to use your noggin too, not just the Elmers. So I'll catch you next time. Have a great one. Alpha Delta 7, leaving November. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.